10 hidden facts about Scarface. Welcome to Scarface Quotes. Today we will go over 10 hidden facts about the 1983 Scarface, film starring Al Pacino. But before we start, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Without further ado, let's jump right into it. Number 1. The film was a remake of the 1932 Scarface, film starring Paul MUNI as Tony CAMONTE. One day, Al Pacino was walking along Sunset Boulevard in Los Angeles, California, when he decided to watch this American gangster classic film at the Tiffany Theater. Al Pacino stated how he was very impressed by the performance of Paul MUNI and inspired him to be like him. This leads him to call Martin Bregman and eventually started the production of the 1983 Scarface film. Number 2. The vast majority of the film was not filmed in Miami. The primary locations included LA, New York, and Santa Barbara. This was due to the fact that a large portion of the Cuban community was not a fan of the production of this movie. Some even went as far as believing Fidel Castro funded the film to paint a negative portrayal of Cuban immigrants coming to America. The majority of the scenes were filmed in California, like the portrayal of Tony's mansion and Alejandro Sosa's mansion. And one of the most memorable scenes that was shot in Miami was the chainsaw scene, which was shot on Ocean Drive Street, Miami, and is currently a local CVS. Number 3. The movie was very close to having another actor play Tony Montana. Although Al Pacino had the initial idea to remake the movie Scarface, it was not a foregone conclusion that he would be the one to play the main character role. Reportedly, Robert De Niro was offered the role of playing Tony Montana, but he declined the offer. It's crazy to think that someone else besides Pacino could have played the role, and even though Robert De Niro is a great actor, as well, I find it difficult to believe anyone could have replicated the terrific performance of Al Pacino in Scarface. Number 4. The film initially did very poorly in terms of reviews from film critics. Stephen Bowrack of Manny Ribera, he said that director Martin Scorsese had told him be prepared because they're going to hate it in Hollywood. They did, and Scorsese knew they would, he said, because it was about Hollywood. Also, Al Pacino, despite the poor initial reviews from the movie, never changed his stance on the work that was done on this film. He stated, "You make a lot of pictures, and you realize some don't have it. I knew there was a pulse to this picture. I knew it was beating. And then I get getting checks from the movie, and then wherever I was filming, people would come up and say, 'Hey, it's Tony Montana.' In Israel, the Palestinians wanted to talk to me about Scarface." Overall, this just shows how the movie was really ahead of its time, because as the movie got older, its popularity increased until it eventually became a classic in modern-day pop culture. Number 5. Scarface was given an X rating 3 times for its extreme violence, strong language, and hard drug usage. And apparently, Richard D. Hefner, the chairman of the board and administrator of the motion picture rating system, and his colleagues objected to the number of times the clown, Octavio, was shot in the attempted assassination against Tony Montana in the Babylon Club. But after the countless amount of modifications to the original script, every version was rated X, which led Brian DePalma to pull a panel of experts, including real narcotics officers, who stated the film was an accurate portrayal of the real-life drug underworld. One officer stated everybody should see this movie because cocaine is killing everybody, and this movie will tell you what really happens when you get involved in this insane cocaine world. These testimonies and the persistence of Brian DePalma led to them overturning the X rating to a rated R film. But since all 3 versions of the movie were given an X rating, Brian DePalma decided to submit the original unedited version to the theaters, and it was not until months passed by where the film had already been released on video cassette tapes that he admitted he had released the first unedited version of the film. Number 6. The scene between Elvira and Tony at the Cadillac dealership when Pacino slips on her hat was not in the script. Al Pacino slips on her hat in a playful manner and says, "Would you kiss me if I wore the hat?" And must show if our reaction was genuine.
Would you kiss me if I wear the hat?
Number 7. Tony Montana eats from finger bowl. In the scene where Tony Montana is negotiating with Alejandro Sosa in his mansion in Bolivia, you see Tony Montana eating the lemon from the finger bowl instead of washing his hands with it. This shows how Tony grew up poor and never was exposed to a wealthy lifestyle like everyone else at the table. This subtle part of the scene is something that most viewers miss when first watching the movie, and it's brilliant directing by Brian DePalma, and overall this just shows the great attention to detail that was put into this classic film. Number 8. Screenwriter Oliver Stone was inspired by his own coke addiction in writing the script for Scarface. In order to create the most accurate picture possible, Oliver Stone spent time in Florida and the Caribbean interviewing people on both sides of the law for research. It got hairy. Stone admitted of the research process. It gave me all this color. I wanted to do a sun-drenched, tropical, third-world gangster, cigar, sexy Miami movie. Unfortunately, while penning the screenplay, Stone was also dealing with his own cocaine habit, which gave him an insight into what the drug can do to users. Stone actually tried to kick his habit by leaving the country to complete the script, so he could be far away from his access to the drug. I moved to Paris and got out of the cocaine world too, because that was another problem for me, he said. I was doing coke at the time, and I really regretted it. I got into a habit of it, and I was an addictive personality. I did it, not to an extreme or to a place where I was as destructive as some people, but certainly to where I was going stale mentally. I moved out of LA with my wife at the time and moved back to France to try and get into another world and see the world differently. And I wrote the script totally farking cold sober. Number 9. Pacino was injured while handling the machine gun. That's right, the method actor was willing to bleed, actually burn, for his art. In the film's very bloody conclusion, Montana famously asks the assailants who've invaded his home to say hello to my little friend.
Say hello to my little friend!
Which happens to be a very large gun. That gun took a beating from all the blanks it had to fire, so much so that Pacino ended up burning his hand on its barrel. My hand stuck to that sucker, he said. Ultimately, the actor and his bandaged hands had to sit out some of the action in the last few weeks of production. Number 10. Was there real cocaine on the set of the movie? There is still no confirmation on what exactly Al Pacino was snorting in the final scenes in his mansion, where he was standing in front of a mountain of cocaine. Director Brian DePalma said jokingly, "The cocaine that Al was snorting was real. Haha. No, I don't know what Al was snorting, to tell you the truth." Then Al Pacino was asked, and he states, "I don't like to give away that secret because it takes away from somebody's belief. You have to have a secret, that's part of what we do." So this leads to the cursory of many viewers on whether or not there was real cocaine on the scene of the film. I mean, it was the 1980s. But to this day, we will never know. What do you guys think? Was there real cocaine in this iconic scene? Let us know down below. Was your favorite hidden fact about Scarface? And also, if we missed any, comment down below. Make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel for future content.